My name is Daryl Wacker. I am the Director of Operations, and I want to welcome you to our March NMA Liveonline webinar. We decided to do something a little different this month as a way of recognizing National Women's Month. And so in a minute, we'll introduce Danae, who will be our speaker today. But first, Heidi has got our monthly history update. So Heidi?
Hi, everybody. Hi to all of our Blue Cross friends and all of our chapter members around the country. Just real quick, I'm going to give a quick plug. You can see I'm wearing my NMA 100 shirt. Remember that the store has the opportunity for you to purchase shirts like this and other gear to celebrate 100. So we're going to go into some history. Past couple months, we've been going through each decade, and we are now in the 40s. And so I first of all want to highlight the 4 chapters that you see here that were founded in March. We've got KBR Leadership Huntsville, Energy Northwest, Lockheed Martin Leadership Association in Huntsville, and Lockheed Martin Cape Canaveral. So congratulations. And for Huntsville, congratulations on your milestone anniversary of 60 years this month. So great to be celebrating that. As we've been going through each month, we're letting you know how prices continue to evolve over the decades. So you can see in the 30s, gasoline, milk, bread, and our tomato soup continues to grow. Milk really skyrocketed in the 40s, even by 30 cents. That's still considered a lot. But the interesting thing is that housing and stock prices, not surprisingly, were on the decline. We are in the middle of World War II during this time, so definitely that makes sense that those prices were going down, especially the stock market. Some other historical things, the presidents during the 40s were FDR and Harry Truman. Some of the business leaders we wanted to highlight, William M. Allen from Boeing was leading during the time. Estee Lauder, of course, of the Estee Lauder Corporation. Leroy A. Patterson from Otis Elevator. Where would we be without our elevators in some of our buildings? And then a Michigan known company, Kellogg Watson H. Vanderploeg, was leading during the 40s. And then some business related books we've been wanting to highlight if you want to go back and see if you can access any of these, especially at your library. We've got The Open Society and Its Enemies, Volume 1, The Spell of Plato, and The Grand Alliance by Churchill. So those were some popular books during the 40s. Some other facts. So these were the major events that were happening. We are definitely trying to highlight things that also connect to our chapters. So we do have some history on the Bahamas. The Duke of Windsor, Prince Edward, was appointed the governor of the Bahamas in August of 1940. The Bretton Woods Conference was established the World Bank. And then we got to the end of the war in the middle of the 40s. And then the Spruce Goose had its maiden and only flight on November 2nd of 1947. And then just a couple other things, things that were invented during the 40s, the Z3 computer. So we don't think about the fact that there was computers technology happening in the early decades, but it was. So there was the Z3. The Aqualung was invented in the 40s. Bell Telephone had its first mobile telephone service in St. Louis. And then Velcro. I'm sure we still use Velcro for some things, but I know definitely when I was growing up as a kid, Velcro shoes were a big thing. Velcro was invented in 1941, finally patented in the 50s, which decade we'll be talking about next month. So those were all of the history moments. I just want to continue to remind you all, we are looking for your updates on your community service projects. So make sure that if you are getting those completed, send those to Daryl and Myron. We are keeping track of those because we want to reach that goal for 100 hours of service, and we would love to even have 100 service projects. So continue to work on that. I will be sharing some more probably in the next month or so about the time capsule, so be waiting for that. But there is your history moment for March.
Great. Thank you, Heidi. Okay, and now I would like to turn it over to Veronica Beasley Robinson from our Blue Cross Blue Shield chapter in Detroit, who will introduce our speaker.
All right, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My task today is to introduce our speaker. Danae Shelton is a senior financial analyst on the Enterprise Financial Advisory Team who performs testing for internal controls over financial recording across various business areas within Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan Enterprise. Currently, Danae is the co-chair of the Masterclass and Fundraising teams at our chapter. She joined NMA Chapter 141 in November 2022 to support the Professional Development Committee. Danae is passionate about preparing others for success by making personal and professional connections. She's also a champion for planning team engagements and building morale within the finance division. Danae attended the historically Black college and university, HBCU, Kentucky State University, where she was an all-conference scholar athlete in women's volleyball to earn an associate's degree in liberal arts and a bachelor's degree in accounting with a minor in marketing. She's smart, y'all. She also holds a Master of Science degree in accountancy from Walsh College and a license and registration in the state of Michigan as a CPA. Really excited about that part. Her career has been filled with opportunities, and Danae is optimistic about a deeply analytical and customer-focused future, contributing to the achievement of organizational goals and objectives. She wants to be known for being attentively action-oriented, collaboratively trustworthy, confidently competent to deliver superior financial outcomes for the business. I give you all Danae Shelton.
Thank you, Veronica. That
You're
was
welcome.
quite the introduction. Thank you, Daryl and Abby, for having me on this magnificent platform. And hello to everyone who has joined. I am really excited to be here to facilitate Masterclass during Women's History Month, representing Chapter 141 of Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. So, Masterclass is an online learning platform that offers high quality video courses taught by industry experts in various fields. So, it is my hope that you leave here with the motivation to tackle the journey ahead. And before we begin, I want to shout out our chapter president, Sama Hamam, for all of her leadership and support in initiatives like these. So, a few highlights about Women's History Month. In March, we proudly celebrate Women's History Month each year, a time to honor the extraordinary women, past and present, who have shattered stereotypes and paved the way for progress. As we reflect on their voices, sacrifices, and their stories, let's also take a moment to acknowledge the work that remains to create a future where all women and girls are able to thrive no matter where they are. The National Women's History Alliance presented 2025's theme, Moving Forward Together, Women Educating and Inspiring Generations. This theme celebrates the collective strength, equality, and influence of women who have dedicated their lives to education, mentorship, and leadership, shaping the minds and futures of all generations. In today's playlist, we'll hear affirmations and insights from these extraordinary women who have made it on their own terms. We're excited to have you join us for today's curated masterclass session, Shattering the Glass Ceiling to help you excel in achieving your goals. Thanks for joining us. The chat is live, so feel free to share your comments as we watch together. Let's get started with Issa Rae, Own Your Strength.
There's a lot of reticence that comes with being a woman in this industry because you're constantly having to do this dance of being just nice enough while also trying to get your message across. Because to be labeled difficult in this industry is the equivalent of the C word. And to hear male colleagues dismiss other women that I know that happen to be strong and that are opinionated as difficult and see them relegate them to the let's not work with them anymore category is very scary, because you're just like, okay, they got labeled difficult because they had a vision, because they articulated it like so many male directors do. Why can't we be afforded that same respect? And I found myself kind of navigating that multiple times. And I do think that there's a good middle ground. Like, you don't have to be a bitch. You don't have to be a mean person. And you don't have to talk to people crazy to get your message across. But you should be able to freely do so and articulate it without being afraid to be called like, ooh, she's rough, or ugh, so hard to deal with. Because men just get to do it, and they get to be called visionaries. So I'm still cognizant about that, but less so, because I know my intentions, and I think people are generally receptive as long as you're not talking to them crazy. For my women out there, for my ladies, I think too often we're conditioned to feel like we don't belong, like we have to prove ourselves. And you have to rest assured that you belong there. You have a voice. You can use your voice however you want to make sure that the job gets done right, because it's yours and no one else can take that away from you. So speak up and speak out.
It's easy for me sitting here to say, you got to keep going, you got to get up, you got to go on, because it looks from the outside looking in like, well, what have you ever had to worry about? Well, we all worry about a lot, and we all get paralyzed by indecision or by, fear and anxiety, insecurities of every kind. But sometimes it's real. You suffer an illness. Someone you love is sick. Sometimes you've had an accident. Sometimes you've been fired. Sometimes you have all sorts of anxiety because you just keep trying and it doesn't work out for you. Well, you have a choice. I mean, every day you wake up with a choice. You have a choice to give in and give up, to be dejected, to be pessimistic, to think nothing is ever going to work. Or you have a choice to say, wait a minute, let me try something different. Or let me figure out if there's somebody I can go to, can maybe help explain why I keep running into these dead ends. I think every one of you who has a dream, who wants to realize that dream, you've got to do the work. You've got to do the preparation. You've got to prepare yourself for setbacks. Maybe you don't get the grade you were aiming for in the course you're taking. Maybe you don't get the promotion that you think you're entitled to and you've worked for. Take stock. Is this a path I'm still going to keep working toward and I'm going to stay on? Or maybe I go off on a separate path. Maybe that job that didn't recognize my hard work and my talents is no longer where I should be spending my time. Maybe you should go off and take your ideas and start your own enterprise. Maybe you should figure out whether the job you're in or the path you're following is really what is going to make you as happy as possible. And if not, you try something different. And then again, you prepare. And then again, you seek out good advice. And then again, you say, I'm getting up. I'm going forward. I'm making my bed in the morning. I'm exercising so I'm healthy. I'm trying to do what I can to be prepared. And then you follow whatever that new path might be that would lead you toward the dream of living a fulfilled, productive, mission-driven life.
Confidence does not come from perfection. You don't have to be perfect to be confident. I am still nervous in so many places and I don't have like the perfect speech. And I can still be in positions where I don't feel fully ready. And I'm like, oh, I'm not wearing the right outfit and the shoes are not really matching my dress. Those moments are always there. But that does not mean that you should doubt yourself for a second. You are courageous, you are brave, you have a mission, you have so much work to do, you should focus on that. Confidence does not require perfection. All it needs is you believing in yourself and you accepting yourself as you are. It is a bit of that conversation that you have with yourself, that you keep on encouraging yourself, keep on motivating yourself. And that is how I have developed this confidence. Another thing that really helps me is that the things that I speak out about are really important. I'm speaking the truth. I'm sharing my stories. There are moments when you get nervous and you get a bit anxious and you're sweating. Those things are common, they are normal. I tell myself that it is okay to go through this because once you go to the stage and once you are there, you're focused on delivering your message. There's nothing else to be afraid of because the stage is yours. So don't worry about anything else. No one can remove you from that place.
There is absolutely no one on this planet like you. And you, to be the actor that you are, you have to be the you that you are. You have to fully allow yourself to be who you are. Of course, you feed that you into all these different roles. And when people say that you're hiding behind a role, I say, no, it's the opposite. You're revealing yourself within a role. You're always revealing something lurking maybe within you, maybe lurking within all of us, but you're revealing. You're not hiding. And it doesn't matter how many wigs, and I love wearing wigs and all those accoutrements. At the heart of what you're doing is revealing something within yourself. And so you don't try to be anyone other than what you are. If your legs are too short, too bad. You just got to live with that. You know, if your hair isn't long enough or whatever the issues are, just own it. Own yourself, own your own qualities, own your own physicality, and go forward. You know, it's very difficult because we are constantly being judged on what we look like. And I don't mean, you know, are we beautiful or not? It's not that. It's like, are we tall enough? Are we too short? Are we too, you know, blonde? Are we too dark? Are we too whatever we are? We're always too something or other that makes us not suitable for this role. So we are constantly having to confront feelings of inadequacy and wrongness about ourselves. And all I can say is, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Yes, you may be wrong for that role, but you are not wrong. There's another role that is you, that is right for you. So own who you are. Don't fight it. Don't question it. Don't angst about it. Don't have sleepless nights about it.
The expectations that are, you know, put on, especially a brown dancer, when someone's being seen in a role that people just think that's not the role that you should be doing because of the way you look, it creates a different type of criticism. It gave me this mental block where I no longer could perform the fouettes. And it's so crazy how your emotions are so connected to your body and your confidence and everything. So it got to a point when we were in Singapore and we were performing Swan Lake. Someone had filmed my performance on their phone, and they had posted a section of me in the fouettes where I did maybe like 8 or 10 fouettes, and then I went into a piqué ménage. So, you know, in my eyes, like, yes, I didn't do what I hoped to do, but, you know, I'm a professional and I finished professionally and clean. And I think that people that, you know, don't know what to expect or not just there to see the, you know, this kind of circus act, didn't see it as an issue. But my initial reaction, of course, was like embarrassment and like shame and like, and then it immediately like turned around and I was like, no, I want to share this. And I actually posted on all of my social platforms. And, you know, I said to that person who posted it, thank you. Like to be able to look at it and have like a bigger, broader perspective, and also to speak to the issue of, you know, kind of this like bullying that happens, and that there's a way to approach it, and especially for young kids, that you don't have to run away from it. You also don't have to entertain those people. And I think it just allowed for me to have a conversation that's not often had, especially in the classical ballet world, which is going back to what the intent of it all is. And it's to make people happy. It's to tell a story through movement. Like, people shouldn't come to the ballet to see someone do 32 fouettes and to critique them in that way. It's like, you can stay at home and watch it on YouTube. But it's about an entire performance and all that it takes to become different characters and go through a 4-act ballet. And that your performance shouldn't be defined by 2 minutes of a ballet. And so that was an extremely difficult time, but it also, I think that when you address those things that make you insecure, it only will get easier from there.
I think that, unwinding and relaxing is just as much of the work as is the work. All the things, all the imagining, all the dreaming, all the creating, all the manifesting is benefited greatly by the relaxing, the unwinding, the doing nothing is actually doing a lot for you. And I've learned that over time. And for me, meditation is a really, really powerful tool. For me, it's changed everything for me because it's really given me a center. It's given me a certain perspective, a way to tune in to my own intuition, my own inner voice, my own thoughts and opinions. Like I said, there was a time when I just went so fast that I never took the time to hear my own self. And I think that's probably a lot of our lives and cases. It's not intentional, but nobody tells you to slow down and listen to yourself. When does anybody tell you to do that? From a kid, you're told to listen to everybody else and follow everybody else's rules and do as you're told and be seen and not heard and all the things that you're told, right? So who's going to tell you to listen to yourself, to tune into yourself, to check on your soul, And so that discovery for me has really opened me up wide to a whole other universe of understanding and confidence, to be honest, to know that I know what I feel and I'm very clear about what I need and I'm very clear about what I want. So I'm really excited constantly about going deeper into meditation because I feel like it really is leading me to places that I just would not be able to access or get to otherwise. So yeah, I think that relaxation, that self-love, that self-care, that time to carve out for you where the noise is down, you can just hear, it's priceless. Priceless.
I think the important thing for young women to realize today is that there was a struggle to reach where we are today and not to take it for granted and to know what the people before were able to sustain themselves and fight for in order to bring women's rights. I think in some ways the women's revolution may be the most important revolution in the whole history of our country because it means that women and men can stand eventually on an equal basis, that their children see both a woman and a man fulfilling their own destinies, that women and men can be friends when they're young. I mean, all these things, when you think about the days of chaperones, or you think about you couldn't be with a man unless you were going to marry him. I grew up in a neighborhood where the overwhelming majority, there was only one woman who worked. And maybe it was a great thing for us kids. I can understand that in a way, but there were probably women who had destiny, who had talents that were never reached. And it was that era when that's not what a woman did. So now to be able to combine work and family, and it's more likely now because men are taking more control and more interest in the family than they did before. It's great for the men. It's great for the children. So that as relationship between women and men changed from the women's revolution, I think it's a monumental change in what society is going to be like. And I think it's a great thing. And as I say, I certainly hope that I'm still alive when that first woman finally becomes president. And we have to worry about, what is that first spouse doing after all? What kind of job are we going to give to him?
Let's pause for a moment to acknowledge women's history in our communities, classrooms, and civics groups. By integrating these topics, we can ensure that the contributions and achievements of women, like these bold, confident women walking in their purpose and passion, are recognized and celebrated, which fosters a more inclusive and equitable society. Let's face it. Shattering the glass ceiling is not done by tapping lightly. You must be a barrier breaking force. Let's hear from Elaine Welteroth, the former Teen Vogue editor in chief and multimedia icon, as she shares with us the reason you should dream bigger and believe in the impossible.
If you follow your instincts and the skills that you picked up in this class, you will find yourself in rooms you never thought you'd be in. You say, this is what I want. I believe that you then create this powerful invitation. You attract experiences and opportunities that you might feel you're not even ready for. And sometimes it can happen quickly. Sometimes it takes a really long time for anything to start happening. But whenever it happens and you find yourself in that room sharing air with somebody you never thought possible, you might freeze. I've done it. Let me tell you, I've done it. I cringe to this day. I had an opportunity to talk to Michelle Obama one time at this thing that I couldn't believe I was at. She was sitting behind me and I literally froze and I said nothing. Then this other time, I found myself on the red carpet next to, guess who? Oprah freaking Winfrey. I was the last person to show up to this party, and who but Oprah Winfrey was the second to last person on that red carpet. And I froze. I completely froze. I was like, there is literally nothing that I have to say that she hasn't already heard before or that she really needs to hear right now. She probably just wants to be left alone. And everybody is going to come up to this person. Like, what do I have to offer that it's of value? Valid question when we're talking about Oprah Winfrey, by the way. But there are people in our ordinary lives that we admire and that we look up to, that we might find ourselves sharing space with. And to sort of get ahead of, to plan ahead for that moment where you might possibly feel paralyzed and completely, I don't want to say starstruck, but just intimidated, frankly. I think it's important to do some visualization and to role play in your mind long before that moment ever comes, how you want to feel in that moment and what it is that you want to convey about yourself. And if you practice before the moment comes, you'll find that you have muscle memory to fall back on. And it's going to take practice, guys. Like the first time you walk up to somebody that you really respect and admire and say something or and say literally anything, you might have a ball in your throat. You might feel like your hands might shake. You might feel like a total nerd. And that's okay. It's normal. A lot of us feel like that. People that are hugely successful are also incredibly shy. All of this to say, it's not easy putting yourself out there. It takes guts. It takes courage. And it takes preparation. So plan for what you can. And then in those moments, seize the opportunity. What is the worst that can happen? You fumble the ball. Guess what? You won't be the first and you will not be the last. But you will kick yourself if you don't give it a shot. I've never talked so much in my entire life. I hope that you're still there on the other side of this screen. Thank you so much for taking the time to go on this journey with me. I hope that you have found it fulfilling, enlightening, energizing, and empowering. I hope you feel that you can go out and do anything that you've dreamed of, and that it is all possible with a game plan. And most of all, I hope you feel more prepared with your game plan to go out there and be the boss of your own life. You got this. I promise you, you got this.
We've got one more video, and this young lady is sure to seal the deal of this shattering the glass ceiling conversation. In the past year, the values of equity, diversity, and inclusion have been increasingly challenged. Misinformation and disinformation make it more critical than ever to include all generations in the effort to promote these principles. Advocating for equity and inclusion requires courage, especially when faced with those who seek to misinterpret, exploit, and discredit these values. Let's hear from the poet Amanda Gorman, who's known for her iconic reading of The Hills We Climb in the 2021 inauguration.
I always think that success is when preparation meets opportunity. So for example, for around 6 years, I'd been challenging myself from college on that every single poem I was going to write a poem that was worthy of an inauguration. Didn't know I'd be the 2021 inaugural poet, but I also knew in the future I would have loved to do that. And I wasn't going to wait around kind of for the opportunity to arise. I was just going to practice and hone my craft and hone my skills so that when the time arose, I would be ready and I could claim it and make the most of that opportunity. And in the end of 2020, I received a phone call from the Biden administration telling me that I had been selected to be the 2021 inaugural poet, which mind-blowing because at that time, I would step into this role as the youngest person who had ever done that before by 22 years. So basically my entire life. So on January 20th, I went out and performed my poem, The Hill We Climb, expecting that moment to mean a lot to me, but not necessarily for it to resonate with as many people globally as it did. And now I'm going to walk you through what rehearsal and prep looked like for me for my inaugural poem in 2021. On that day, I woke up and I was so nervous, so terrified that my body was kind of on autopilot. Like I woke up 2 hours before I needed to, did my makeup, did my hair, like got in the motorcade and we were off. Honestly, when you're doing spoken word, so much of the labor has already been done. People don't see that. People don't get a kind of close lens into what it was like for me to spend days just writing, not sleeping, not eating. And so when I showed up to the podium and I finished, it was this feeling of, I've already done so much of the time and the energy. The only thing that is required of me in this moment is for me to show up. And if I can do that, then I've succeeded. With The Hill We Climb, I knew I was going to be at an inauguration that was going to be quite unlike anyone we'd seen before because of the pandemic. So I knew, for example, that my audience were going to mostly be virtual. And what that meant for me is I had to try as much as possible to make this performance intimate and close and familial. So that might even include, for example, my makeup. The reason I kind of wore makeup that was really bright and loud is I wanted people to feel like they could still see my face, even if they were, miles and miles away watching through a webcam. And another thing I thought about in terms of audiences, I think most people consider my audience for the inaugural poem to be this, to be the audience I'm speaking to as a country. But I begin the poem addressing the President of the United States, who is actually at my back. Mr. President, Dr. Biden, Madam Vice President, Mr. Emhoff, Americans, and the world. So when I was performing and rehearsing to go on stage, I was thinking three-dimensionally. What is this going to look like to the audience in front of me? But how is this going to look to Kamala Harris and President Biden behind me? Which is why I use a lot of big shapes, why I use my whole body. So even the people behind me who can't see my face can still feel like they're getting their just due in the performance. And another thing to think about with voice, I speak kind of very slowly and long in the hill we climb because I'm waiting for the echo of my voice to reach the end of the National Mall and to come back to me. And then I keep going. Because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain. If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy. Another thing that I worried about when I was on stage in the inauguration is I was the shortest person speaking that day, which is fine, but it also meant that compared to my microphone, I was a bit low, even with the little stand that they added me. And so when I think about voice and body, as a spoken word poet, you have to decide what type of relationship you want to have with your own microphone and your voice. And so, for example, when I'm reciting The Hill We Climb, I turn my body a lot, or I kind of slant it a little bit. And that's my attempt to give people kind of a three-dimensional look at my face that's not completely blocked by this huge microphone. And so again, that is to say, we take these fundamental tools and we build on them. So the more kind of complicated the environment gets, the more ready we are to step into that space. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. The good thing about being a poet that no one knows yet and having a poem that no one has read is you're the only one who knows what's an error and what's a rewrite. That is to say, unless you cue the audience that you've made a mistake, they're just here for the ride. They're here for the experience. Every single inaugural poet that there's ever been has made a slip up at the stand at the inauguration. Robert Frost couldn't read his poem in the glaring sunlight, so he recited another poem he knew by heart. All that to say is, coming to that podium, I knew I was actually coming into a tradition that was flawed. And my goal wasn't to be perfect on inauguration day. It was to do the poem justice and to keep going throughout kind of those mistakes. So while I was reciting my inaugural poem, my nose was dripping a little bit because it was so cold outside. I stuttered on a word because my teeth were so cold that they were chattering a little bit. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour. There was a moment where I say the word beautiful twice instead of the word dutiful, which is what it is on my paper. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. And honestly, I just kept going because that's what we do as poets. It's not about showing up and being a robot or being perfect. It's about being a person and still saying what needs to get said. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
And at 22, the youngest poet to read.
When I finished my poem and walked away from the podium, I was just relieved. I had cried and sweat over this poem. And so I left with that feeling of relief, tried to find my seat amidst all the politicians because I didn't want to get tackled by Secret Service if I got too close to anyone. And I sat down and it felt good. Honestly, on January 20th, my life changed in 6 minutes. And that was a lot to take in. I remember leaving the inauguration, going back into the Capitol building, and even then, the energy that I was being met with was quite different from anything I'd ever known. My phone was physically hot with how many notifications, phone calls, followers that I was getting. And something that keeps me grounded in all of that kind of hailstorm of it all is remembering what it felt like to write at 7, 8 years old. That understanding of the reason I do what I do isn't for fame, it isn't for attention, is to make a difference. And if I can remind myself of that purpose every single time I pick up the pen, then the heat and intensity of the spotlight is really rendered insignificant because it's more so me wanting to use that spotlight on issues that matter. I want to congratulate you for making it this far in the course. Learning, writing, and listening to revising poetry can be so difficult. It takes not only our minds, but also our hearts as well. It takes both intelligence and bravery. To close out our class, I want to tell you a little story. And that is about me around 3 or 4 years ago being in a poetry workshop. At the time, not many people around me in my classes knew that I was United States Youth Poet Laureate. It was kind of this secret double identity I had. But I remember being in this workshop with other young writers and one of my peers saying to the teacher, I just don't really see why this matters. I can't really point to one poet that I know who's making a change. And when I first heard that, I was insulted, I was angry because poetry means so much to me. And as time went on, that anger became purpose because I knew every time I was writing a poem, performing it on stage, I was doing it for that kid who thought that their writing, that their voice didn't matter. And when I stepped out on the inauguration stage and performed my poem, only to see it spread throughout the world with such love and joy and excitement, I wanted that same kid to see that effect so that he finally had an answer to his question, that he could look around and point and say, here's a poet that's making change. And I will say to you, if you open your eyes and look around you, there's always light, there's always poets, there's always those writers who are making a change. And what's most exciting and most striking about the time we're living in is one of those writers is going to be you. So I can't wait for you to get out there and set the world ablaze.
Wow. I hope you're just as motivated as I am. Now that you know what it takes, you are so much more closer to your dream destination. It is my hope that you found today's curation meaningful and insightful. Thank you so much to my friend and one of our chapter leaders, Veronica Beasley Robinson, for your development of this initiative and in today's session. And in the words of Amanda Gorman herself, there is always light if only we are brave enough to see it, only brave enough to be it. And if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy. There are some additional resources on the National Women's History Alliance website as a guide for practical advice to engage in exploring women's history, both locally and nationally. So don't just reach for the ceiling. break through it. And I'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much for NMA for allowing us to host not only today's session, but our chapter hosts weekly sessions for the motivation of our members. And if you would like your own license, please reach out to NMA Director of Member Services, Abby Funk. We have discounted licenses through your NMA membership. Thank you to the chapter board members for allowing me to host today's session. And thank you to our team of facilitators within our chapter that make our Monday meetings possible. Masterclass is a valuable tool for anyone who is looking to acquire new skills, expanding your knowledge, and achieving your career aspirations. So these courses can help individuals to develop and enhance their skills in your various interests, which can ultimately lead to achieving your personal and or career goals. These courses are designed to be engaging, interactive, and informative, providing learners with the opportunity to learn at your own pace and convenience. By choosing the courses that align with your interests and career goals, you can gain a more competitive advantage in professional lives and advancing your career. So I'll turn it back over to Daryl for closing remarks.
Great. Thank you, Danae. That was fantastic. And just to reiterate something Danae spoke about, one of the reasons we asked them to do this, not just we knew they do this very, very well at their chapter, but we wanted to show chapters also, hey, this is something you can do at your local level. Every chapter has licenses to use. If you don't know how to use that, or you're not aware what the login or whatever is, please contact Abby, because every chapter has a complimentary license that they can use. So I also want to thank you guys. We shattered the all-time attendance record for the NMA webinar since I've been here 5 years, and we've never gotten anywhere near today's attendance, and it was almost double our record. So I want to thank you guys for logging in to support Danae, and we hope you'll spread the word next month. We got another great webinar coming up next month that I'll be starting to publicize very soon. So Abby, did you have anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks. That was incredible. I really am just always taken aback by your chapter and everything that you guys are able to accomplish. You're a great example. And Danae, I've really enjoyed getting to know you over the last year. I put it in the chat, but it's true. You're a superstar. So keep thriving.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And by the way, I know where Kentucky State is, so I've been there before. So, one thing I will note to everyone. So I'm going to provide a copy of this video to Danae and also the 141 leadership. I can't put this video up publicly because of some copyright issues. But if you would like a copy of it, let me know. I can upload it into a Dropbox or a Google Drive and give you direct access to that. So don't look for this or don't wonder where it's at in the member portal. It won't be there. So with that, we're going to sign off. Danae, thanks again. We really appreciate it. That was really, really good.
Thanks again. This was a great opportunity to be able to come to the webinar.
All right. Thank you, guys. Take care. We'll see you in April.